All the characters in the story are over 18. I'm 42, and I have a wonderful, loving husband and 2 daughters. My friends call me Alice. Being a psychologist, I was able to establish excellent relations with my girls. Today, Rose and I had a frank conversation. Mom, was your dad the first? Well, of course, darling. Was it before the wedding or after? Why are you suddenly interested in this? You always told me that a girl should have one man in her life, and all that. Mark's been hinting a lot lately, so I figured we'd be together. So what difference does it make now or after the wedding? Do you feel a strong desire? Yeah, I can't help myself. That's natural. But you've only known him for 6 months, and you're both young. How do you know how your destinies will turn out? You always told me that a girl should have one man in her life, and Mark's been hinting a lot lately, so I figured we'd be together. What difference does it make now or after the wedding? Do you feel a strong desire? Yeah, I can't help myself. It's natural, but you've only known him for 6 months. Besides, you're both young. How do you know how your destinies will turn out? You'll regret succumbing to hormones later. But what should I do? My mom cried, and my already grown daughter hugged her. I hugged her back like I always did. I think we'll go to the store tomorrow and get you some kind of toy to make it easier to endure. My daughter looked at me in surprise, then hugged me tightly and whispered, "You're the best, Mom." In the evening, I looked at the night landscape. I thought to myself, I'm really going to regret this. My daughter was crying, and I hugged her. I always hug her. I thought, we should go to the store tomorrow and get her a toy to make this easier. My daughter looked at me in surprise, then hugged me tightly and whispered, "You're the best, Mom." I looked at the night landscape of our city and remembered that very first time. It all started when I was 18. My body was surprising me every day. Hormones were raging. I didn't understand myself. There was no one to share it with. No one could explain. My parents were very strict, which only made my situation worse. At that time, my cousin lived with us. He was 5 years older, but that didn't stop us from having fun playing as kids. We were pretty tight. Sometimes, if we were alone and watching a movie, I'd lean my head on his shoulders, and he'd treat everything calmly. We'd watch football at night, and he watched TV while I just sat there. My dad went to bed early sometimes, and I'd jokingly ask him to sit closer. We had a good relationship, but it was kind of dumb. I'd throw my arms around his neck from behind when we were alone and watching a movie, or lean my head on his shoulders. He was pretty calm about everything. We'd watch football at night, and he watched TV while I just sat there. Sometimes my dad went to bed early, and I'd go up to him and ask about the game, just joking around. Then we'd sit down together with the TV turned down and the lights off, and something would happen. I have no idea what came over me. I'd take his hands and pull him into a kiss. I was sweating and felt like my head was spinning. So we were sitting there, the TV was off, the lights were off, and all of a sudden I just did something totally crazy. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like everything just happened on a subconscious level. I was like, "Hey, can you get me something from the kitchen?" And he was like, "Sure, what do you need?" So we started holding hands, and I remember this incredible heat rushing through my body. My head was spinning, and my legs felt like they were made of cotton. But then we heard something, and we moved away from the TV and sat down again. My heart was beating super fast, and I couldn't catch my breath. We were both looking at the screen, but I'm pretty sure I was on the verge of sleep. The whole day was just this crazy fever in my body and soul, and I had hundreds of thoughts going through my head. I couldn't sleep, and my heart was pounding in my ears. It was like this whole thing started from that very day. I guess you could call it dumb love. We never talked about love or feelings, and we never made promises in conversation. We were still the same, but our bodies had changed. I was wondering if every girl's neck has such a sensitive part. I'd say everyone is familiar with this incredible, airy feeling. Every day, I walked to the institute as if on wings, and impatiently returned back and again. Everything is without words, but these feelings, moments were so beautiful. At that time, I imagined us as a married couple, and my cheeks were burning with a bright blush. When he let me go, I felt his warmth for a long time. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we were never alone at home. Mom only worked until lunch, and before that, I also suffered from an internal struggle. But from that day on, this internal struggle became almost unbearable. In the end, I was just a girl living with feelings and dreams. And even though I knew the norms of morality and all that, I still couldn't help myself. I dreamed of feeling it all over again while taking a shower. I sometimes imagined him coming in and out at night. He was careful again and didn't go that far anymore. 2 weeks later, my parents had a wedding anniversary and went to a restaurant. It was the first time I'm just a girl with feelings and dreams. I knew the rules of morality and all that, but I couldn't help myself. I dreamed about feeling it all over again while taking a shower. Sometimes I imagined him coming in and out at night. He was careful again and didn't go that far anymore. 2 weeks later, my parents had a wedding anniversary, and they went to a restaurant. It was the first time we were alone. My brother was lying in his room at the time. I walked around the house for half an hour at first, not knowing what to do. On one hand, I wanted to, but on the other hand, this is wrong. As a result, driven by my feelings, I ended up in his room. He was awake, sitting at the table and doing his homework. I know he noticed me, but he also continued to write something. I wonder if his heart was beating. I was alone, and my brother was lying in his room. I walked around the house for half an hour, not knowing what to do. I wanted to go in, but I thought it was wrong. I went into his room, and he was awake, sitting at the table doing his homework. I know he noticed me, but he also continued to write. I wonder if his heart was beating. I had to leave before it's too late, but I couldn't stop myself from going over to him. He made some kind of sound, and he suddenly lifted me into his arms. This is the moment we may love. She closed her eyes, stopping the tears. What should I do now? This is all wrong. His scent, which had seemed so wonderful before that day, now seemed unpleasant. I have to leave, but I just cringed. I had to leave before it was too late, but I couldn't stop my legs from running towards him. He made some kind of noise and suddenly picked me up. This is the moment we may love. She closed her eyes, stopping the tears, and I had no idea what to do. This is all wrong. His scent, which had seemed so wonderful before that day, now seemed bad. I had to leave, but I just cringed and didn't want to move. My body was still feeling numb. Somewhere inside, I was saying, calm down. Everything is fine. Nothing has happened. You wanted it yourself. It's so nice. You need it. It's natural. You're a girl, and he's a man. I tried hard to banish these thoughts and pretended to be asleep. From that day on, I no longer watched TV at night, although it was a little hard. But I was preparing for admission. I was nervous to move because I was still in a state of self-reflection. My other self was telling me to calm down, reminding me that everything was fine, nothing had happened, and that I wanted it. I thought, it's so nice you need it. It's natural. You're a girl, and he's a man. I tried hard to banish these thoughts and pretended to be asleep. From that day on, I no longer watched TV at night, although it was a little hard. But the preparation for admission helped, and his session began. In general, another month passed like that. He finished his studies and went to his place. There were no words of farewell, no explanation, nothing. He just hugged me before getting into the car. I must admit, I missed him. I would like to receive messages from him or something like that. In the same year, my parents gave me a laptop, and now I could access any websites. I turned 21. They said I was beautiful. I often looked at myself in the mirror, long wavy black hair, slim figure, slim waist. My face seemed beautiful to me sometimes, and sometimes not so much. I had big brown eyes with thick eyelashes, but I couldn't stand my nose and the shape of my face. I had a lot of information about relationships, but I didn't let guys near me, partly because I was waiting for I thought I was pretty hot. I'd look in the mirror and I'd think, wow, you're pretty. I had long, wavy black hair, a slim figure, and a slim waist. Sometimes I thought my face was beautiful, and sometimes I thought it was ugly. I had big brown eyes with thick eyelashes, but I couldn't stand my nose and the shape of my face. I had a lot of information about relationships, but I didn't let guys near me. Partly it was because I was waiting for my one true love. Partly it was because of my upbringing. I was all about studying, and my parents were of a purely Oriental disposition. There was no question of any boyfriend/girlfriend status. We only have the status of bride and groom, which smoothly turns into the status of husband and wife. Fortunately, my parents gave me a choice. Since I have refused all the guys my brother found for me. My parents were pretty traditional, so there was never any question of a boyfriend or girlfriend. We only had the status of bride and groom, which smoothly turns into husband and wife. Luckily, my parents gave me a choice. Since then, I've refused all the guys my brother found. My brother found a daughter-in-law, so we went to their wedding in another city. There was a lot of commotion, so we hardly talked with my brother. My heart was racing every time I was with him. I just wanted to talk about everything. There are 5 days left before the wedding. Everyone decided to go out of town, for we decided to go to the wedding of my in-law and brother, who's getting married in another city. There was a lot of commotion, so we hardly talked. My brother and I were always on edge when we were together. I just wanted to talk about everything. There are 5 days left before the wedding, and everyone decided to go out of town for a day to relax. I had an exam in 10 days, so I stayed home to study. My brother had a bachelor party that day, so I had to be alone. Everyone left, and I sat down to read a book. After about 40 minutes, the bell rang. "Brother, did you forget something? A friend has a wife and It was a day to relax. I had an exam in 10 days, so I stayed home to study. My brother had a bachelor party that day, so I was alone. Everyone left and closed the door, and I sat down to read a book. After about 40 minutes, the bell rang. My brother said, "Did you forget something? A friend has a wife in the hospital today, so we decided to reschedule everything for tomorrow." My hands were shaking a little. I went into the room to read, of course. Nothing came to mind. "May I?" My brother sat down next to me. "Why didn't you go with him?" "Everyone, I have an exam soon." "I see." We sat in silence. What came over me? I decided to postpone my hospital visit to tomorrow. My hands were shaking a little as I went into the room to read. Nothing came to mind, of course. "May I?" My brother sat down next to me. "Why didn't you go with him?" "Everyone, I have an exam soon." I see. We sat in silence. What came over me? Maybe I just wanted to talk to someone about what I'm most interested in. Someone I trust. "How many times have you seen her?" I sat down, tucking my knees under me and bowing my head slightly. He looked at me in surprise a couple of times. "Did you like her?" "Well, she's a good girl. She'll be a good wife." Well, I guess I just wanted to talk to someone about what I'm really into. Someone I trust. "How many times have you seen her?" I sat down, putting my knees under me and bowing my head. He looked at me in surprise a couple of times. "Did you like her?" "Yeah, she's a good girl. She'll be a good wife. Well-mannered. She grew up in a respectable family." "Do you love her?" He paused, thinking a little. "I try to find someone for myself. I met a lot of people, but it didn't work out. My parents really wanted to marry me. They found one or the other. I kind of liked her, so I agreed. I'm tired of living the bachelor life. I'm a man, after all, and Mom needs someone to help her around the house. I'd like everything to be fine with you, and you were happily married." He looked at me, and I smiled. He had an unusual look, "And you've grown so much since I last saw you." His voice trembled, and he looked down. I wanted to talk, you know me. Anything, but don't let him talk about it. "How many times have you made love?" Then I must have gone crazy, but to be honest, I sincerely wanted to help him. All this time, I was very grateful to him. After learning more about men and women, I realized how nobly he treated me. He did. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm not going to let him talk about it either. "How many times have you made love?" Then I must have gone crazy, but honestly, I really wanted to help him. I was very grateful to him. After learning more about men and women, I realized how nobly he treated me. He didn't reject me, no matter what hurt my heart, which was just beginning to live. At the same time, it cost him a lot of effort to restrain himself. He didn't allow us anything that could ruin my life. Who knows? Maybe if it hadn't been for him, a less noble man would have turned my head. He looked at me, totally dumbfounded, like he was saying, "Was that just in my imagination? Come on, we're both adults. Besides, you and I are close, and I'm studying to be a psychologist. I need practice, and we can help each other." A couple more minutes, and he spoke for 5 times. Then I stopped when a friend of mine caught the infection. Then it started. I turned into a soul, a heart, a body without particles of mind. "Come on, I'll show you something you'll need to win her body, soul, and heart, and then she'll be a wonderful wife and make you happy." I pulled him into their future bedroom with his. My wife sat down on a new oilcloth-covered mattress. Now, imagine that I am her. We'll develop an algorithm of actions. I laid out to him the complete instructions for my first perfect wedding night. I said, I'll try to open my soul and heart. My body said it, even though I said it simply. My wife sat down on a new oilcloth-covered mattress. Now imagine that I am her. We'll develop an algorithm of actions. I laid out to him the complete instructions for my first perfect wedding night. I said, open my soul and heart. Shall I try? I kind of said it simply, but my whole body was shaking. After that, we made love again. I was crying quietly, not out of sadness, but out of happiness. I might regret it later, but now I'm happy. So, without saying another word, we both fell into a blissful sleep. I woke up to the sound of the bell. I wanted to run, but his strong hand stopped me. We were both exhausted after that, so we had sex again. I was crying quietly, not because I was sad, but because I was happy. I might regret it later, but for now, I'm happy. We both fell asleep without saying another word. I woke up to the sound of the bell. I wanted to run, but his strong hand stopped me. Calm down. It's only been 3 hours. I'm going to marry you. No, what I mean is I have to marry you now. No, what happened, but we can't get married. We're related, so what if we get married to cousins? What about the children? Or would you like them to suffer because we couldn't? Hey, just chill. It's only been 3 hours. I'm about to marry you. No, what? I have to marry you now? What happened, but we can't get married. We're related, so what? We'd be marrying cousins. What about the kids? Or would you want them to suffer because we couldn't? Just overcome yourself. And imagine what kind of rumors will go around when you suddenly cancel the wedding and marry me. This is out of the question. And now, what are you going to do? Think you can live in peace knowing what I've done? It's my fault. I started it all? No, it's my fault too. Then I will. I'm starting to think that maybe we should just move to another country. I mean, we'll probably forget about the whole thing soon, right? I went to the bathroom, and he tried to reach me for a while, but I managed to talk him out of it. The night after his wedding, I cried when I thought about what was going on in the marital bed. My heart literally split apart in the same year. Despite my dad's persuasions and even threats, I still transferred everything and started to slowly forget. I made friends, life went on as usual, but I still didn't let the guys near me. A year later, she moved from the hostel to a rented apartment. Despite my dad's attempts to persuade me otherwise, I slowly started to forget. I made friends and life went on as usual, but I still kept the guys at arm's length. A year later, she moved from the house to a rented apartment. One evening, the doorbell rang, and when I opened it, I was surprised to see my brother standing there. He came in, and we had an awkward pause while we talked about nothing. Then he said, I love you, and I can't do it without you. I've decided everything, and now you can't talk me out of it. I was a fool to let you go. One evening, the doorbell rang, and when I opened it, I was surprised to see my brother standing there. He said a few things, and I felt like I couldn't think straight. Then he said, I love you, and I can't do this without you. I've decided everything, and now you can't talk me out of it. I told him, you go, but I won't make that mistake again. Love is not given to reason and logic. All this time, I missed him. Everything in me struggled for so long, and in the end, I gave up. In the morning, I found out that he got divorced 6 months ago. I talked to our parents before I arrived, and they agreed to the marriage. He's been working hard, and he's already bought a small apartment here. We got married, adopted our girls, and now everything is just fine. What are you thinking about, honey? Just about our wedding night? Let's go to the room and remind me otherwise. I forgot.